okay, I think we are going to be back live. Yeah, Sam has just exited, so we had an interruption in the stream, but we are back. We were just talking about the Lumberjack matches or Lumberjill matches that they often have held in wrestling. It's quite an old match concept, but it's not one of my favourites. Dave, what's your thought on the Lumberjack match?
First Lumberjack match I ever saw was Shawn Michaels versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan on like a 1993 Raw, and all the Lumberjacks all had Lumberjack shirts on.
Yeah.
And apart from Yokozuna, we obviously didn't get one big enough for him. It was kind of ridiculous. I didn't really understand what was going on. The only time I've ever seen them have either been like things to like make things like feuds then happen. There was like one between Diesel and Sid where King Mabel interfered in the match, something like that, to attack Diesel, would set up their feud going on from there. And like I said, it's always been a bit of a tired concept, this idea to be able to do that. I do laugh though, where I've heard that they've in not in WWF or even I think elsewhere, or I've heard of like Lumberjack matches that have happened, which have still ended in double countouts. You're like, what the? Yeah. It's like how has that happened? I will say though, I think the best Lumberjack match was the one between Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins just after Seth had split the Shield. I think they had a Lumberjack match. I want to say at SummerSlam after that, maybe, but it was like when they still brawled everywhere, and the Lumberjacks were trying to chase after them, trying to get them back in the ring for absolutely ages. And something happened. I think someone interfered and lost Ambrose, but that was a very fun one. Just this idea that the other wrestlers just chasing the two around the arena, trying to get them back in the ring. I will shout out my friend of mine, Chris. Him and his brother run a wrestling company called Good Wrestling.
Oh wow!
And they had it's interesting you say about the idea of a show with no ring in it. They recently did just that. They had a show in the Black Heart in Camden, upstairs room in there, and they had a whole wrestling show with no ring. They had it was just in like with safety pads on the floor and things like that. They ran a whole show with basically the fans being the ring ropes. So for a wrestler to grab touch the fan, that was the rope break and things like that, which was really funny. But they've also done a Lumberjack match, where it was two women wrestlers, and they had a Lumberjack match, which was just one Lumberjack, one guy on his own, just trying to go around, just bring them back in. And because it was women, it was like asking them nicely, "Can you get back in the ring, please? Can you bring?" All this sort of thing. So they take the piss out of the format quite hugely.
Yeah.
So Good Wrestling, those if you want to.
Do you know what though? Yeah, good. That sounds cool, but I quite like that idea. Like, I think there has been other like shows with indie companies in America where they've done stuff and it's just like in a bar or something like this. But it also brings to me, I don't know if like you guys will be familiar with this, but there was the WCW video game called WCW Backstage Assault, where it was a wrestling video game without a wrestling ring in it. And everything was just in like backstage areas, which was a cool concept. And I don't see why they couldn't do that as some sort of wrestling show. So now we've had like the Boneyard match, which I'm sure we may mention at some point beyond this, where you could just have like a crowd of people, like we say about this Lumberjack match, could be like a Fight Club feel. And like with AEW, did you see AEW like a week ago where it was Kenny Omega and Matt Hardy against Jericho and Sammy Guevara, and it was just
the sex gods.
The sex gods. But that was a great match, and they were just brawling in the back. And something I'm just going to mention on that, which is a slight segue, because it doesn't really tie into what I'm saying here. But the bump Sammy Guevara took when he was run over by that cart thing, which to me looked almost as full of car as you could ever be. That was. Yeah. Did you see this, Dave?
I didn't see it, no.
So there was a bit where the car was driven by Matt Hardy and with Kenny Omega in it. They're driving towards Jericho. Well, they say it's a golf cart. It looked like a car to me. It's got big full-size wheels, right? It's driving towards Jericho, and you suddenly see Jericho spin, and they're like, Jericho just got out of the way in time. It's like, no, I think it clipped him. And it's like, well, clearly he just spun out the way in time. But then they turn it back round. Sammy Guevara's checking on Jericho. And Sammy Guevara's like, and he turns around and he's running, and it literally, you can see him in the foreground. He turns around, he jumped, but the car hits him, and he just spins down onto the ground. It's like, that is the most insane bump. Yeah, I don't know, because like it hit him. So even if he sort of put his arms up or something like that, it would have put the pressure like through to his face and everything, and that could have so easily gone wrong and literally just ran him over.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Anyway,
Even
so
the fact that Matt Hardy got put into an icebox was a bit mental.
that was brilliant. You know, and
I need to watch this match. It sounds fun.
oh my god,
It was great.
It was really good. They use a scissor lift, and I'm not saying like a head scissors or something like this. They use a scissor lift like you would use to like wash windows or something like this. It's a brilliant match. Okay, let's move on from the Lumberjack match. And Sam, do you want to introduce another idea?
So another one that we've briefly mentioned a couple of times throughout the show so far. I'll go for next, the War Games match.
War Games.
So War Games is something that I have only recently come into my knowledge, because the first time that I saw it was when it came back to NXT.
Yeah.
So I think the Undisputed Era have been in every War Games match in NXT. And it's one of these ones where at first I really didn't understand it. I didn't understand why there were two rings. I didn't understand why there was a cage around it. I didn't understand what was going on. But then I watched it, and straight away I was hooked. It was one of those ones where, you know, I love the fact that you've got a point where people are, you know, teams are outnumbered, and it's kind of a handicap match for a while. Then they come in and even it up. I really like the fact that you can be creative between the two rings. You know, I can remember AOP throwing Roderick Strong from one ring to the other into the opponents. I think there's been some great moments. More recently, they've been bringing a lot of weapons into it as well, where someone runs down the ramp and they just bring out a load of weapons, chuck in tables, bins, chairs, whatever. They bring all of that in. I also thought the women's one last year before Survivor Series was a fantastic match. You know, Rhea Ripley, Team Rhea Ripley against Team Shayna Baszler, and where Dakota Kai turned on what's her name? Tegan Knox, that's it, yeah. She turned on her, so it ended up being a 4-on-2 match, and then the underdogs still managed to come out on top in the end. It's one of those matches where it can go backwards and forwards. There's so much chaos and so much drama going on throughout it. In the last one, Tommaso Ciampa did that drop off the top of the cage with Adam Cole through a table.
That was crazy.
It was crazy, especially considering Ciampa had recently come back from major neck surgery. Any big bumps like that, I never really like watching Ciampa do. They make me cringe, but it is equally as impressive as anything else I see. So yeah, I love a War Games match.
It also famously gave us the Britt Baker reaction.
Yeah.
For anyone gets what I mean there.
It's Adam Cole's girlfriend! It's Adam Cole's girlfriend!
That's right.
But then AEW are doing a blood and guts match at some point, aren't they? Which is a similar, if not the same concept.
I know. Wasn't it meant to happen the week that lockdown began?
Yeah. It was meant to happen just on an episode of Dynamite.
I know.
But now they're saying it's Double or Nothing, I think.
They're not doing it at Double or Nothing.
Are they not? I thought that was
they want an audience for this match.
Oh, fair enough.
And that's why they were introducing Matt Hardy into AEW as the extra person. So it would be
also 11 people.
Sorry?
And also 11 people in the ring at the same time is probably not a very good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. We spoke about the Royal Rumble. Just to briefly come back to that and some of these things that we face in this modern world. Are we ever going to get a Royal Rumble again? Is that even something that's sensible? Is it possible?
Well, yeah, the entrance can be social distance quite easily, I think. But as long as they keep it to like every 5 wrestlers that are in there, someone's got to be eliminated.
I know, but then at the same time, you're getting like this ring just covered in like 30 guys' sweat at one time.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair enough.
So if you go in like 29, you're like, well, I'm getting it.
Well, arguably they shouldn't be doing any wrestling at the moment anyway, but that's an argument for another debate.
Yeah, true.
Is social distancing going to last forever? Is this what we're suggesting on this show?
I am never shaking a hand again in my life.
That's a very different thing. I can understand not wanting to touch other people for you, David, but other people can be allowed to.
No.
Otherwise, eventually, the population will decease.
I just think it's going to end up like the Disney movie. What is it? The Pixar film. What is it? WALL-E. It's going to be where we're
Wally.
like, I'm spending most of my time just like live streaming this chair, so I'm just like plugged in, getting all this information. I'm just like the fat person slowly gaining weight in WALL-E. Anyway, what were we talking about? Blood and guts.
War game.
War games.
Blood and guts. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, this is a Dusty Rhodes invention, the Match Beyond, as it was originally known, and Cody recently tried to get the copyright for. I'm not sure if he was successful, hence why it's now known as Blood and Guts. But it was a Dusty Rhodes concept, and it would often, because like NWA era, you'd have the Four Horsemen, and so it would make sense to have the Four Horsemen as a unit against other like opponents. If I look this up, the first one was about 1987, in fact, and you'd have the Road Warriors, so Hawk and Animal, and Nikita Koloff and Dusty Rhodes against the Four Horsemen, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Lex Luger, and Tully Blanchard. And it would just be this concept. Sorry?
Go on. I was going to say, would the managers have been involved as well? Because I think J.J. Dillon and Paul Ellering would have been in some of them as well.
Yes, you're correct, in fact, yes. Absolutely. But it's just the idea that you could get a double cage surrounded by steel with a lid on top, and then you're going to have two start, and then it's going to be a 2-on-1 handicap match, and then their partner's going to come in, and it's always the heels that go in first. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen a War Games match where the face team had the advantage.
I think there's been maybe like one, but I don't think anything like famously has been. It's always been the bad guys, but essentially it was a horseman thing anyway. One apart, maybe 92 was like the Horseman versus Dusty or Sting or someone that they've assembled and things like that. So there's always involved Flair and Anderson and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just checking through here to see if we did get one that didn't have them. Guys, are we still there? Are we still there? Have we lost signal? Are we back? Dave, you look frozen to me, and Sam, I cannot see you. The Zoom meeting... Okay, Sam, Dave, you were back. We were back. We had a little bit of issue. I don't think it's with the stream, but it may have been with Zoom. So we'll keep this going until we know otherwise. But, yeah, just looking through the history of it, it looks like here that we had a War Games match, which was the Road Warriors, the Midnight Express, and Steve Williams against the Fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes, Jimmy Garvin and Terry Gordy, and the Samoan SWAT team, Fatu and Samu. But that...
Oh, I did not know about that one.
Yeah, apparently that's a house show, so they obviously tested it. But a lot of these are house shows. So when we come to... so the Great American Bash, 89... that was the Great American Bash, and then they did it again on the house show. But the Great American Bash, 1989, was the Road Warriors and the Midnight Express, and Dr. Death Steve Williams against the Fabulous Freebirds and the Samoan SWAT team. So, hang on, who's the heel team there?
SWAT team and Freebirds.
What, so... Okay, so this was going to be a very slim point where the Midnight Express were face.
Yeah, they were for a little bit. I think Road Warriors may have actually turned on them a little bit. Like after that, there's a match on the Road Warriors DVD where they are against the Midnight Express, who were for some reason the underdogs. And I think they were a little. There was a little time where Midnight Express were face.
Yeah.
Very brief. But I personally, I always liked War Games because it was always sort of it very much was like it showcased like NWA with for the fact that they were the more realistic of the companies, of the big companies, because obviously everyone was sort of saying that the WWF was too cartoony and all this sort of stuff, and War Games was always sort of the one that was in there, and the build up to who's going to go in next and how it's all going to build up and how everyone would be when the actual match officially started when everyone's in there. And I always quite liked the fact that it was submit or surrender, which is like the rule in those days before WWE decided to add the pinfalls to it. But I always liked that it was always submit and surrender, and it was always be like a case of who's going to give up, and that sort of thing. There's certainly been some good ones. I think the Sting Squadron against the Dangerous Alliance is sort of like known as like being the best War Games match. That's that is really good the whole way through.
So okay, who was on the Dangerous Alliance? That was Steve Austin, Rick Rude.
It was Rude, Austin, Bobby
Beautiful
Eaton,
Bobby. Yeah.
I want to say maybe Arn Anderson and
yes, that's
I think
right.
Larry Zbyszko.
That's it. Yeah.
In the Dangerous Alliance, and Sting, Ricky Steamboat, Nikita Koloff,
Dustin
Rhodes, and Barry Windham.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Wow,
yeah,
my memory's impresses me sometimes. Yeah, but there's a really good bit towards the end where they try and use like the steel. They take the turnbuckle off of one of the corners and they try and hit Sting with it. And I think Zbyszko hits Bobby Eaton's like an armbar on Eaton, which gets the win. So it's like I really appreciate that literally anything could finish the match. Or anything like that. A big double, triple, quadruple team or anything like that. It could be anything that could get the final win.
Yeah.
With it. Having said that, some War Games matches are absolutely atrocious. I will bring your attention to 1995 of Hulk Hogan's team against the Doom.
The Dungeon of Doom.
Dungeon of Doom against Hulk Hogan's team of Luger, Sting, Savage, and Hogan.
Yeah, okay, but so the Dungeon of Doom, Sam, if you're not familiar with this, it was led by Kevin Sullivan, who was the former husband of the wife Taskmaster, so Kevin Sullivan was married to Nancy Benoit, as she would become known. So if that's a connection to who Kevin Sullivan is. But he was the leader of the Dungeon of Doom, who were determined to destroy Hulkamania when they turned up in WCW. And the Dungeon of Doom was always... It was where WCW went ultra cartoony, ultra WWF style, and it would have lots of former WWF wrestlers in there. Like do you remember who the Natural Disasters are, Sam? Earthquake and Typhoon.
I vaguely can picture them. I know they're two very big guys, but that's
okay. Yeah. Okay. So this may just about be your era. So do you remember the Oddities?
Nah.
Oh man, they were the Attitude Era. You'd get Golga, who was John Tenter, Earthquake. He went to WCW and he couldn't be called Earthquake, so they called him Avalanche. And then they were going to get sued for that, so he became known as Shark. And you get Brutus the Barber Beefcake, who I think a year ago was put into the Hall of Fame. And he was a man of 1,000 names in WCW. He was the Booty Man, he was the Barber, and
Brother
Brudai, the Zodiac,
the
Butcher. Yeah.
At this point, though, in this match, he was the Zodiac.
The Zodiac.
No. Yes. No. Yes. That was his gimmick.
Yeah.
Just saying yes and no.
And so the Dungeon of Doom, it was just awful. I'm trying to remember did they have Kamala at one point?
Kamala was in this one, and I think Meng was in this one as well. So those are the
okay, so Meng, also known as Haku, who you may have seen with Rikishi when Rikishi... Okay, do you remember when Rikishi turned heel and he ran over Steve Austin?
Oh, I vaguely remember that moment. Yeah.
Okay, so he brought in Haku. I'm not wrong about that, am I?
Crazy.
Yeah, he's got like the big hair.
No, you must know who Haku is. He's known as the most toughest man that's ever been in professional wrestling. He's like legitimately the toughest, hardest man ever in wrestling. If you go to his Wikipedia page, go to the stories and rumours and things like that. The stuff he has done to people when he's been put in that position is incredible. But perfectly, apparently, very affable, friendly guy. But you get on the wrong side of that man,
he'll bite your nose off.
I'll definitely be looking this up.
Yeah, look up Haku or Meng, who was, I think, in fact, he was the last ever WCW Hardcore Champion, and his contract ended, and he just turned up in the Royal Rumble, speaking about surprise returns at a Royal Rumble, and he was still the WCW Hardcore Champion, and then they just never did anything with it again. Anyway, do we have anything more to say on the match beyond?
No, No, just it's good fun. There are a few variations on it. I wasn't too keen on, like the first time that NXT did it with the 3-team rule, which I wasn't necessarily a fan of, and then the last time they did it in WWE, where it was like 3 different faction teams, but only one person could win it in the whole thing. Which I think DDP ended up winning it, and it had the Warrior appearing in the ring, then going away from the ring, then running to the ring, which is a bit weird. Yeah, so but above that, it's a classic concept. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Okay, let's like dash through a few more concepts. Just looking at the time, because we could literally do like it's part 2, part 3, part like 17 of this. So let's just like blast through a few more to wrap this one up. Who needs to suggest the next match type? Dave, go for it.
Hell in the Cell.
Dun dun dun.
This one could go on a while, but we've sort of vaguely talked bits and pieces about it. But again, another classic concept I think maybe be watered down a bit by having a show about it with multiple Hell in a Cell matches and the same sort of thing. A good stunt match, as we all know from the first 2 at least, with Michaels and Foley's sort of big bumps that we talked about a few weeks ago, and has had, again, like War Games, has had really, really good fun matches and had some utter dross before as well, like Undertaker and Bossman at Mania a few years ago, which was not a good match.
Or perhaps the worst example of it of all time, the all-red presentation from last year.
Oh, don't do it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to find
the one that ended in a no contest.
Yeah.
In a Hell in a Cell match.
Do you remember X-Pac's reaction to that? When they're like watching, it went viral. X-Pac's it's like, I don't care if they don't bring me back. How do you have a disqualification in a Hell in a freaking Cell match?
It was crazy.
That's all you need to say, really.
It was.
It's typical modern WWE, isn't it? Where they just bring in this new rule to, have a bit of a non-finish.
Yeah.
Which just irritates everyone. Because it was a good match up until that point, and the fact that we're getting as sadistic as they were, Bray Wyatt took a headshot, which hasn't been done for years. But then they ended it as a no contest, and I was like, oh, what a disappointment.
Well, it's because he killed him with a giant mallet, like Itchy and Scratchy.
That wasn't the sledgehammer. They piled lots of like things up on him, and then like the last thing was like the sledgehammer. It's like, no, you don't do it, Seth, don't do it. Smash. Right, that's it. We're in the fucking bell.
Okay, I need to check this though. Wasn't it a comically oversized mallet?
It was into the match.
It was more like Thor's hammer, yeah.
Yeah.
I like the last hammer.
And it was just one of those ones where suddenly the referee is Seth Rollins' counsellor, trying to make him have a moral compass about all of this. I'm just, chill out, ref. Do your bloody job. Count the 1, 2, 3. See if there's a submission. Shut your friggin' mouth.
Yeah. Oh man.
I was angry, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the most famous.
What about the one that was the Braun Strowman caused no contest in by interfering in?
Was that the year before?
Sorry, Lesnar.
What was that?
Strowman versus Reigns ended in no contest because Lesnar interfered.
Right.
The year before, I think.
Yeah, it was the year
before. That's what I'm saying.
before.
It's been watered down because it's now an event. It's now watered down to the point where they can't even have a finish in a Hell in a Cell, which was used to be like this massive, like this was like the feud enders.
Yeah. Okay, so the most famous Hell in a Cell match, we spoke about it before last week's episode when we were talking about Mick Foley and The Undertaker. They had the most famous one, 1998, which was the second ever. And it's not like the greatest match ever to watch, but it had like the craziest things probably WWE have done in a match ever.
Yeah, and obviously the first one had the debut of Kane as well, so it's like that's historic enough as well.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of other good ones. There was the one that ended the refereeing career of Tim White, where he took a bump from the stage against, I think it was Jericho and Triple H, I think was the one. Yeah. And he took an unfortunate bump which ended his refereeing career, unfortunately. I don't know about you, I quite like the tag team Hell in a Cell from between Usos and New Day a couple of years ago. I can't remember it offhand. Yeah, it's not. There's so many that have been there. It's not as fully remembered, but I always thought it was quite underrated as well. But definitely I prefer the ones where it's just one. Generally prefer the one-on-one ones. And I think what you mentioned earlier, David, about when we were talking about the cage matches and saying that you could, by having like the pinfall submission rules and things like that means you could have matches which don't involve the cages or the outer layer.
Yeah.
Worst Hell in a Cell match, apart from Bossman and Taker, which I mentioned a moment ago, I think was Sheamus and Randy Orton, where they didn't do anything to do with the cell. Literally nothing. There was one bit where they brought the stairs into the ring. And Sheamus did that backbreaker. You know, the one arm sort of like the Uranagi backbreaker. He brings him up and like drops him across the knee. He did that to Orton on top of the stairs. Now think about that for a second. How does the stairs going to affect Orton being given a backbreaker on top of the stairs when Orton doesn't make contact with the stairs?
Yeah.
But Sheamus's knee does.
Yeah.
Do you know what though, Dave?
I was just like,
yeah. There are several questionable moves in professional wrestling which we could delve into another time.
oh yeah,
You know,
putting
like,
a submission on someone on top of a table.
yeah,
So much more effective.
it's just like even like Cody does the crossroads. Like he swings around the opponent, and maybe even like Sister Abigail, like moves where you pull your opponents, they land on you. It's just like, well, you've taken the bigger bump.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first time I saw that was in WCW. There was a wrestler called Reno, and he called his finishing move "Roll the Dice," and it was basically.
I always liked that. Move.
What? You pull them round, and it's not like a DDT. It's just like they're getting so much padding and cushioning on your body. You've taken the bump. But anyway.
Yeah.
Got the.
Oh, I may have lost you guys. May have lost you guys
talking
through that. What's he got?
Talking about John Moxley and the Paradigm Shift, where it's like a DDT where they're between his legs. So you think about the softest part of a man's body, and he's got his opponent landing as a
Absolutely.
Logic in wrestling is amazing. Anyway, Hell in a Cell. There we go. That's my next one.
Yeah, okay. I will throw in another one to make this a slightly more rapid idea. And let's find something that's... Okay, so I'm going to bring up a Firefly Funhouse match. And basically from this, I'm going to extend the concept...
There's one.
I'm going to extend the concept to cinematic wrestling matches. So we had the Boneyard match, which I guess is a version of a Buried Alive match. But then obviously we've got everything that Matt Hardy has done with the Broken Universe. But the Firefly Funhouse match, I suppose, took that concept, and I suppose this Die Hard Die Hard Money in the Bank ladder match that we just had also took the idea of the cinematic wrestling match further. I didn't mind it, Dave. What was your issue with Money in the Bank?
So bad.
What was the issue?
I don't know. We'll be here all day.
Okay.
It was so bad. I hated it. Literally, Shayna Baszler headlocking Rey Mysterio was the best thing in the whole thing, and actually made me laugh. But
I didn't. That's one of the few bits I didn't like.
From everything from the shitty doink to Brother Love in the toilet to John Laurinaitis just popping up out of nowhere for no reason. All these attempts at comedy that WWE cannot do is just it's just no. It didn't work for me.
Well, you think?
But it had the rightful winner in Otis.
But you think so? They did have a limitation. So they were like, we've only got limited people who we can bring in to do this thing. So it's like they could have got something from their costume department to make a doink outfit rather than it just be a guy in a suit, or like it in a shirt tie or whatever.
Anyway.
Yeah. Brother Love, he's already there. It's Bruce Pritchard. He's writing the show. Paul Heyman's already there, he's writing the show. McMahon's already there. My favourite cameo, actually, was Stephanie McMahon, who clearly filmed it on a different day from somewhere else.
There.
She wasn't there. She was just like, and here's a close-up, and I'm doing my bit where I'm speaking off slightly to the side, because this is what we do when we make films.
I know.
It was awful.
And the fact that...
Anyway, so we'd say... Go on, Sam.
Even just the idea that Dana Brooke thought that was the right Money in the Bank...
Hang on, here's the thing. It was just filled with cash. Take that and leave.
can't imagine it was real cash if they're just leaving it in the boardroom.
What? It's Vince McMahon. Of course it's real cash.
True.
Okay, but...
Anyway, so you're saying cinematic wrestling.
Cinematic wrestling. To me, I liked the Boneyard match a lot. There's a few things about it I would have cleaned up just so that it seems more believable. And one of the things which you can do to clean it up is just don't be afraid to have other cameramen in the shot. Because when you're changing these camera angles, where it's like, now we're going to come to a close-up, and clearly it couldn't have been filmed at the same time, it like falls apart to me. But if you've just got like the documentary camera crew running around like they're in a war zone, I think that would look really good. And yet you could still completely film it and edit it later. But you give away the fact that it's all pre-filmed, from changing camera angles to places where it should be, well, why wasn't there a cameraman there before? If you suddenly saw a cameraman running around, and that's part of the idea of it, and then you just get the perfect, you cut to the perfect camera angle afterwards, just seeing those cameramen would give you the sense that, you know, it's like you're viewing something that's being filmed live, and you could completely sell it as being believable. But then the Firefly Funhouse just took the whole concept. Yes, we've had things with Vanguard 1 and whatever, with teleportation from Matt Hardy. The Hardy Boys, I think they lost the TNA tag team titles when they just accidentally teleported off of the television, and someone else, I forget who it was. I can't remember what was the tag team called. The Decay.
Oh, what are they called? Oh, Decay.
Yeah, the Decay. Suddenly they just teleported. It's like, yes, and now we've got the belts, and that's how they wrote the Hardys off the TV. It was awful. And yet the thing is, they did that in the ring with an audience there, so God knows how they explained that to the audience. But anyway, so they've had nonsense like that before, which was like, oh, this is just lame. But then the Firefly Funhouse match featured zero wrestling. There was no fight. You know, Matt Hardy fighting Jeff Hardy at the Hardy compound, and Jeff Hardy's climbing up a tree, or someone's trying to run someone over with a golf cart. Yeah, they're trying to defeat each other. Where they're literally just got Bray Wyatt dressed up as if he's Mean Gene Okerlund or Eric Bischoff, and John Cena just next to him pumping iron. It's like, how is this a match? Anyway.
It was a mental match. He was brainwashing John Cena.
He was in the Firefly Funhouse. It was a place he didn't know where to go. Anyway.
So is John Cena dead now?
He was affecting Cena's brain. He absolutely ruined the man. No one's even heard of him since. No one cares about John Cena anymore.
It was affecting my brain, Sam.
That's the point. It's supposed to mess with your brain. That is the point of the Firefly Funhouse.
It affected my brain that I cancelled the network. How about that? How about that, WWE? And yet the thing is, they know I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I'll never do it.
Should we go to the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to put in a general sort of a gimmick thing. Just general shite TNA gimmick matches. So we already mentioned earlier about the King of the Mountain match, but I've also got another list of matches that happened only in TNA.
Love it.
Okay, so there was a match called the Clockwork Orange House of Fun match.
Wasn't that just
that
like
Raven's match?
Like a cage or ropes around it where they could just get props?
Yeah. They had like things like that, and then they had like cages laid down, held up on the ring. There was one good one, which I think was Raven against Shawn Waltman.
Yeah,
I think. It was okay. There was just a weird concept. It was Raven's concept, so it was also going to be a little bit out there. But there was also the what was it? The big sort of dome match they had. I think it was called the Asylum match. It was like an X Division Asylum match. Where they had like 10 X Division guys in this dome, and it was the first match they put on for their first
Monday Night War
to go on television. To challenge the Monday Night, to do their new version of the Monday Night Wars. Their first match they had on there, they had 10 X Division wrestlers in this dome cage, which was entirely red, and the bars were so thick that the hard cam could not see anyone in the ring. You couldn't see anything going in there. So only when you got the guys that were in there or got the little camera holes, you could see anything going on. You also had the match towards the end, where the idea was that the contract is dangling from the top, like I've had a match like an Ultimate X, and they'd have to like climb up to this bit. Oh no, they have to get out. They have to get out. There's this hole at the top. They have to get out of the hole that's at the top. So they have to do this whole sort of army training thing and climbing up to get out there. The guy that was booked to win it was Homicide, and he could not get up there. He couldn't do it. He's a great wrestler as Homicide, but a stuntman he ain't in this case, because he was trying to get up there. Everyone was down. All 9 other guys were down from like him hitting everyone with a baton, and he could not get through this hole to the point where he had to eventually. Everyone was selling for so long that they eventually thought, we can't sell this long. We're not that knocked out. So everyone started climbing up after him, and he panicked. He dropped down from the thing and squeezed his way out of the side. to get out of there. It was a disaster of a match.
Yeah.
So TNA, just general TNA gimmicks.
Okay, so
never worked.
Yeah, like the Ultimate X match, I really like the idea of it. The idea is that you would have like an X going across, and they're just ring ropes. They're extra ring ropes, and you would have to like shimmy or climb along them like this to try and get this X. But they didn't always have the concept right, and there was one time where I think P.T. Williams was in the ring, and he could just see that this was going to happen. And as the ropes were bouncing, on like a coat hanger, they had like an X. And there was like this coat hanger, and it just, as it bounced, you could see that it was going to come down, and he caught it, and he's like, and now I've won, and it counted. They may have later tried to say, oh, that didn't really count, but in the moment, that counted, because they're not going to get a ladder out and rehang this thing. Although they might have even done that at one point as well.
Yeah, I think like the first time they ever did it was like I think it might have been a one-on-one or a triple threat. It was a triple threat, and it kept falling off. It just kept falling off. They have to have these guys from the ring crew run in, set up a ladder to put it back up again, do it again and again, and just kept. And then it happened about 2 more times. These guys just coming in, running. It was like a carry-on film in the end, just running in the ladder and putting it back up again. It's awful.
Yeah.
So the only X Division match that I've ever seen was the only thing I remember about it is you had 4 people going from each side of the X, and they were all getting quite close to the middle, and then Suicide jumped off of one of the big like scaffolding things almost on the corners. He jumped and landed right on the middle of it. The Force then knocked all the other 4 off, and then he picked up the title and walked off with it.
Yeah. Wow. No,
they could do fun finishes. Ultimate X matches could be good fun. They generally were. It was just the first attempt a couple of times. They thankfully just managed to improve on it.
I like the Ultimate X match overall. But what other like weird things do they have in TNA?
Oh, I can't remember. Oh, the electrified cage match. We talked about Lockdown being like a cage match show with extra gimmicks and things like that. Do you remember the electrified cage match? It was the Team 3D against LAX.
Yeah, I do actually.
They had the lights down. The lights were changed into a different colour. Every time they go against the bars, they have to like go like that while a sound effect played in the crowd. The crowd shit on it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, they shouldn't do stuff which is like supposed to be people getting electrocuted in wrestling. Because I remember when, even worse than this was WCW, when they had a Halloween Havoc event. And I think Abdullah the Butcher was put in an electric chair. This may have been when RoboCop turned up to help Sting. But Abdullah the Butcher was strapped into an electric chair.
I was watching that match before we came on.
What was this?
I was actually watching. I started watching that match before we came on.
Oh, it's amazing.
Just to watch it because I've seen it. It's
and
hilarious.
RoboCop turns up, and he's so slow because the suit weighs literally 100 pounds, and it was just awful.
Is that the same show?
I'm fairly sure. Is that?
It's only the same year, I think, definitely. But but this it was hilarious. There was a bit where they were all like wrestling, and then suddenly out of nowhere, the chair just lowers into the centre of the ring, and Cactus Jack's just taken the big Steiner Brothers DDT move from off the shoulders and lands right in the middle of the ring, and suddenly he sees this bloody thing about to land on him. He's like, shit, I have to no-sell this bloody big move, the Steiner Brothers, and get out of the way before I get crushed.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh my god.
I'll report back. I can't remember if that was.
No, it's not the same show, but it's the same era. Okay. Any other terrible matches or any other great matches that we forgot the types of? Obviously, we get things like I Quit matches, submission matches,
standing, that sort of thing.
First blood matches.
Anything on a pole match is generally bad.
Wasn't there a Judy Bagwell on a pole match in WCW?
But she was on a forklift.
Okay. Oh, the Punjabi prison match.
Oh god.
So you speak. So hang on. You can't shit all over TNA for having a cage that you couldn't see through. A Punjabi prison match had 2 cages, like made out of bamboo. So
That's the worst. That's worse.
And then the worst thing about it is it was the Great Khali match, and he wasn't able to wrestle in the first one, and the Big Show took his place.
And another thing it was like a challenge out of the Crystal Maze.
Yeah,
it's like everything was timed, wasn't it? So like, oh, you got to get this door will be open for this amount of minutes, and then this door will close after this amount of time. This door will close here, and so it's like you have this amount of time to get out, otherwise you're stuck in this first bit.
And I think the last time they did it, they brought it back for Jinder Mahal. And as a surprise, the Great Khali turned up. And this is one of my favourite things. The Great Khali turned up, like, did next to nothing. Then he took the belt and was like, yeah!
He just strangled Orton against the cage.
But I just loved it afterwards. Jinder Mahal's the world champion, and Khali poses with the belt. Because he's like, I'm only here today. I'm the champion. I want this photo.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, literally, look it up. He literally doesn't give Jinder Mahal the belt. He holds up the belt.
The Great Khali in general is just a great source of entertainment for the fact of how many strange things. Yeah. There was a battle royal that they had once where he just stepped over the top rope. You know that typical big man thing where they step over the top rope? Someone got thrown out through the middle rope. He then followed them and walked over the top rope to get out on a battle royal.
Do you know what, though?
And they just went with it.
Great Khali won the world title in a battle royal. And here's the thing about the Great Khali being world champion. If Great Khali, if wrestling was completely legitimate and the Great Khali decided to be world champion, he would be world champion.
True.
When you get some of these guys that...
Legs, mate, though. His legs was...
Yeah, he was like a weeble.
Skinny legs would not be able to hold him up that long.
But like when you get some of these guys, and it's like Rey Mysterio, you know, you can believe he'll be world champion because he's so talented and stuff like this. But at the same time, I'm just like, you know, if Big Daddy V, if Viscera wanted to be world champion and he'd just sat on Diesel, he could have been King Mabel could have been world champion. If Yokozuna just decided, like Andre the Giant, if he just decided, no, I'm keeping the belt, what could you do? There are some of these big guys, the height advantage, the size, the weight advantage, the strength advantage. Like, if Braun Strowman was just like, I'm not losing this belt, who is realistically going to take it? They'd have to bring in Brock just to literally punch him in the skull again. Do we remember that moment where Brock punched Braun Strowman in the head and you literally see his skull change shape?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah.
But anyway.
2 steps of like back up.
Any other match types before we wrap this?
All right. So another one that was really famous in the 80s, but I never really understood why it was so famous. The scaffold match. Scaffold match was a really weird one. So you had these giant. Have you ever seen a scaffold match, Sam?
No, not at all.
Right. So you had those giant structures like scaffolding, obviously, and above the ring be about 10. Oh, hello, I'm still here.
Yeah.
You'd be about, I don't know, 10, 15 feet above the ring or something like that. You'd have this platform where the wrestlers would have to go up. And you'd usually be tag teams for some reason and go up there. So it'd be like the Midnight Express versus the Road Warriors, for example.
Yeah.
And they'd go and meet up and fight on these platforms like 10, 15 feet above the ring. And the idea was the winning team would be the one to knock their opponents back into the ring and like off the scaffold. And you had variations of these things. There was variations where like you had to like there was one where I think like the winning team was the one who went from one side of the thing to the other.
That sounds like Gladiators. Do you remember Gladiators where you'd have to run past?
It was like the early 90s. There was an early 90s one. There's random teams against each other. I think Steve Austin might have been in one of them. Weirdly, but that's a chat for another time. But the most famous one is when Jim Cornette was the one who basically took the big button. So they both Midnight Express one by one went off, and they won the match. But then, in order to escape the Road Warriors, Cornette had been chased up there, or something like that, and had been was between Warrior and between Animal and Hawk, and so he tries to climb down, and it's going to do this big sort of thing where he gets caught by Big Bubba Rogers, the Big Boss Man, and misses him completely, and just lands in the ring and blows both his knees out, and like Cornette, like sort of say he's like walking and things like that. But he took a hell of a shot there. So just for danger and things like that, I never understood the scaffold match. Even when TNA brought it back for like the
who was that? Rhino was in it, wasn't he?
Rhino and AJ Styles did one.
Yeah.
And AJ was basically crawling in underneath the things, like doing his little like Spider-Man action going in and hiding from Rhino.
This is perhaps one of the famous ones. I believe this scaffold match with New Jack and maybe like Ian Rotten or Vic Grimes or someone like this. I forget who. But
might have been Vic Grimes.
Vic Grimes, yeah, where New Jack he'd been stiffed or had like a bad bump. They'd climbed up. In fact, I remember what this was. They'd climbed up to like a balcony, as you often would in ECW, and Vic Grimes like, I don't want to go off the edge. And New Jack's like, well, we need to go off the edge, and so he sort of forced the issue, and they both went off the edge. But New Jack hit his head. Oh, hang on. So, but this is why New Jack did it. So New Jack was like, we need to jump off of this, and Vic Grimes was like, no, I'm not going to. So New Jack was like, yes, you are, and like pulled the two off, and they took a really bad bump, and New Jack really injured himself. He might have partial vision or something because of this. So roll forward a year, 2 years, whenever it was later. For some reason, in it may have been like XPW or Combat Zone Wrestling or something like this.
Yes, XPW. Yes,
XPW.
Yes.
They're having this scaffold match. And New Jack decides, I'm just going to throw him off the edge, and I'm literally going to try and kill this guy. And he throws him, and he bounces off the ropes, and he just goes down like a ton of bricks.
Oh, that's Grimes, is it? I've seen that, but I never knew who it was. Yes,
I think it's Vic Grimes. That's what I was saying. It might have been like Ian Rotten or someone like this, but one of these like big fatty ECW guys. And he just like bounces off and like misses the tables mostly, bounces off the top rope, and it's a massive 200-300 pound guy who's just like bouncing like this. And New Jack says about it afterwards, like, I was trying to kill the guy, but they'd like moved the setup so that he was lucky that he hit the ropes. So scaffolding matches, I don't think WWE have ever done them, and I don't think they should.
No. I've never liked them.
They could do it now as a cinematic match.
Well, but they're up there and they can't move. It's like we can't do anything up there apart from kick and punch. And even then, you got the guys who are going to be like quite scared to be up there.
I would love to see them do it now as a cinematic match, because you could really plan this thing, and as long as they don't do it for like comic nonsense. You could like do this where someone takes an incredible bump, and imagine if they do it where one of them like they could film the whole thing where they're 2 feet off the ground just from low angles, and then just have the shots where they're up high as well. But imagine that like they do it and there's like a power bomb, and like the platform starts to give and something like this, and they both like go through. That would be cool.
So there's a couple of other ones that just sprung to mind in Japan. Japan have got a lot of interesting stipulations in there, some of their matches. So have you heard of the exploding ring match?
Yeah.
Yeah, where there's a timer and they have to wrestle, and if you're in the ring, basically they have quite a few explosives that will blow up around the ring while they're in there. It's like a time bomb exploding death match or something like that. They have this big arena thing, so they're quite visually they're quite wow, like people like Terry Funk and things like that have been in them, and these are hardcore guys. There was one famous example where the explosion didn't quite go off. I think it was a Mick Foley Terry Funk match. So Foley does the DDT on Funk and gets out of the ring because the countdown's on. Funk's left on his own, and he sort of falls down and sort of covers himself up, and the ring just goes. Going,
yeah.
What do we do now? It didn't go off as
okay, yeah.
They are crazy. There's also this promotion called DDT. Have you heard of DDT?
I'll be back in a second, guys.
So yeah, there's that Japanese promotion who do like really funny stuff. And they have had matches that have been on trains, where it's like a rumble match where the train will go around. They're on train, two will start. They'll fight on the train. And when the train pulls into the next stop, another wrestler will enter and join the match on that train station. And then they carry on to the next bit. And there's like a rumble on a train on the different stations, and each wrestler gets on a different station. There was one from a little while ago, I think like a multi-man match, which was at a swimming pool plaza sort of thing. And there's an amazing clip of got a British wrestler called Chris Brooks, who's in a figure four leg block by another Japanese wrestler, and they go down a water slide while in the figure four leg block. All the way down. They have strange matches in DDT. Really funny. It's where Mega sort of like made his name in Japan, so he's got a lot of sort of ideas from that sort of thing. It's not in DDT, but there is a match on YouTube called the Bread Eating Death Match between these two guys that are in a match. I have no idea how the rules are set, but they are having a match. But every time now, they are in a ring, and being dangled from the ceiling are various types of bread on ropes.
Ciabatta?
Got that. Ciabatta's in, yeah, not Katsuyori ciabatta, but yeah, they've got various different types of bread that are in there being dangled from ropes. And I think the idea is they've got to wrestle, but they've each got to at some point they've got to eat bread as they're going along.
Of course.
They're just eating bread, and I think it's the last one to someone's got to get to the first person to have sample all of the bread in there in order to be the winner or something like that. It's not very clear who wins or why they won at all. It's just a weird match. But the bread eating death match is on YouTube.
Wow.
It's a mess of my brain.
Any last things you want to add, Sam?
No, I think I've listed all of my favourite types of matches, so I'm pretty happy with how it's gone.
Yeah, I think I've covered just about. I'll just have a quick last gander of any things that we've missed. There's so many. We could do like another one going through Boiler Room Brawls and obviously mentioned, but we haven't really talked about First Blood matches and stuff like this. Tuxedo matches, blindfold match we spoke about before. So many different types of matches. But we will wrap this edition for now, though, guys. So thank you for that. That was in-depth look at the different match stipulations, and there's still more, and there will continue to be more, I'm sure, in the future.
Highly enjoyable.
But Sam, where can we find you?
Well, you can, of course, find me in all the usual places, which I'm about to get for you now. I have to make sure that I'm not in the shot, otherwise we could have a very awkward moment here. There we go. So you can find me on Facebook at Sam George Performer. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Samuel O. George.
Oh,
George.
I've gone black and white again. What's happened to this?
God knows.
What's happened to this? What's happened to my face?
What has happened?
Okay, of course, I am David Pastansky. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at David Pastansky. I can't even spell my name earlier today. I can't pronounce my name now. David Pastansky, Pustansky. Dave, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Greeno, acting pages on Facebook, David Anthony Green, and I'm trying to think what we're going to do. What we're going to do next week? Is it my turn next week?
It will be, yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Excellent. I've possibly a show for you guys, and I think if we can agree at a time to do it, I think it might be fun to do a watch-along.
I agree. Let's do a watch-along.
So, the show I've chosen...
The Firefly Funhouse match, Dave. Amazing.
No. Sorry, I wouldn't subject you to that. No. We're going to watch something that's got some things maybe on there, maybe even worse. But it's a classic example of a time and place in wrestling. We're going to go back to 1991. We're going to go to WCW. We're going to watch Super Brawl 1.
Amazing.
Which is 2 hours, 80 minutes, so it's a longish show. But it has got various matches on there. It has got Steiner Brothers versus Sting and Lex Luger.
Love it.
It's got Ric Flair against Tatsumi Fujinami in the main event. And it has got the debut of Oz.
Yes.
It has got various interesting things that happen on this show, and some of it is not good. So it'll be an interesting, fun watch along, I think.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm just looking at some of the things we've got here. We've got El Gigante against Sid Vicious. That's going to be incredible.
Oh, I forgot that was on there. Oh, yes, that's an amazingly bad match.
Oh, we've got the Explosion of Doom, though. We've got Ron Simmons and the Natural Butch Reed.
Yes, a Thunderdome cage match. That's very
Yeah.
intriguing. So yeah, this has got lots and lots of different, some good and some downright rotten stuff on there.
I'm quite excited just for Sam to see this and actually...
Yeah, I'm really intrigued what Sam's going to make of this.
Well, I'm just waiting for him to be like, there's someone I know.
Yeah, that'll be it.
Oh, wow. Super Brawl 1 will be an utter treat. It's interesting as well, because when I was thinking about what we should watch along to anything, I was going down the WCW route as well, but I was going a little bit later than that. Are you guys still here?
That's fine.
Okay, yeah, okay, fantastic. So we've got that to look forward to, and on the interim, if you're enjoying this, we do lots of other things here on the Extreme Improv Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Mixer channels. So every week we have our live improv comedy shows, Extreme Improv, XStreamed, which are always on a Wednesday and a Thursday. We had one this morning. You can see any of these shows. There's probably about 20 different hours of 20 hours of different shows that you can watch. They're all on the YouTube channel where you'll see us and a bunch of other improvisers talking nonsense, occasionally doing impressions of Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar at the same time. Thank you very much last night, Dave. And
Well,
yeah, it's good stuff. You will enjoy what we do. We have other podcasts, including movie ones, video game ones, and lots of other good stuff. So, from Sam, Dave, and David, myself, until next time, this has been the Superkick Mania Pro Wrestling Podcast. And pow! If I could have ended it there, that would have been great.
Oh,
But
that's
literally-
That would have been great. Just all of us doing that.
Okay, hang on. We'll try and do this. Right, wait 1 second, guys. Wait 1 second. I've got to get...
I've
If I
got
can
room,
get-
I can just do it here.
Wait, Dave. Don't do this
will, I
without
will.
me.
I've got my microphone. I'm really worried about kicking it.
Well, don't kick the microphone. Okay. So, Superkick Mania. 1, 2, 3. Bosh!
Ah!